for those who want to recite the Namo Tassa and the three refuges, I'll go ahead and start that. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami. So welcome friends to this Wednesday evening sutta class. In this evening we're continuing our look at or review of the Sab-Asava Sutta, number 2 in the Majjhima Nikaya, the overcoming all the cankers. So last week we began reviewing this sutta, because this sutta was covered in the first month or two of the pandemic when we first started these sutta classes. This was one of the suttas covered early on because of its importance in the practice of the Dhamma. Because you could say the whole practice of Dhamma, about the way leading to the cessation of suffering, is about how to purify the defilements in our mind, all the layers and connections of greed, hatred, and delusion that are within our mind, that basically are the fuel for the mind continuing on in its perpetual state of grasping and becoming. So this in this sutta, the Buddha lists 7 sort of ways or methods for overcoming the defilements. Now, the Pali word that is used is asava, and we went over the meaning of asava last week. But basically, it's the accumulated unconscious thoughts and memories and actions of greed, hatred, and delusion, or those habits of greed, hatred, and delusion that we've been practicing and are basically brewing and down in the unconscious mind, waiting for a chance to come up. And basically, there are 2 main causes of suffering. And the one is the circumstantial cause of suffering, and the other is the substantial cause of suffering. Now, normally when somebody has some suffering or problems, they point to the external circumstances that got them in an accident or got them to get into some issue that brought suffering into their mind. Like maybe somebody acted badly towards them or did something else to them, or because of the weather or any number of causes. They point out this is the cause of And this is what caused that, So those are the external causes of suffering. But the internal causes of suffering, or the substantial causes of suffering, are these layers of accumulated asavas, or defilements. Basically, they all fall within greed, hatred, and delusion. So they cover every gamut of the emotional reaction and negative thoughts and so on that you could possibly imagine, that they all fall within those levels of greed, hatred, and delusion. But specifically, the Buddha mentioned these asavas, 3 kinds of asavas, or defilements, as the asava as sensual desire, or the defilements brought up through sensual desire. That means craving and desiring, liking and disliking to things that we see, hear, smell, taste, touch, and feel on the body. These 5 physical senses, but you could include the mind also, the negative thoughts and so on. But basically the sensual pleasures. And then there's the desire for being, the craving to go on living and perpetuating the sense of I, and even have children as a way of perpetuating the sense of, my grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and, passing on the name, right? Especially if you're a male and your name passes on, in the family, they take your name, so your name is going to be remembered. So there's many, many levels of this craving for being and perpetuating that idea of individual existence. And then there's the sort of the opposite. There's the defilement of ignorance. And basically it's ignorance that causes the desire for being, and also the sensual desires. So ignorance is actually the most insidious and deepest of all of those asavas. So anyway, it's these 3 levels of the defilements that the Buddha is talking about, and how to overcome them and eventually eliminate them. So there's 2 aspects of working with our defilements. And when they arise, like anger, hatred or greed, lust, ego, whatever kind of unwholesome thoughts, then this is their manifestation. And we have to check them and try to not react to them, and to let go of them, so that they don't go on to cause us to recreate some habit, to act upon some habit or thought. So overcoming them. And only when we are successful in weakening and overcoming these hindrances, then at some point when we attain the realizations, then they become eradicated. They actually become eradicated permanently only through the development of the seeing and the development, as we're going to talk about this evening. So actually what I'm going to start with this evening, last week we went over the defilements to be eliminated by seeing. And actually this seeing refers to the glimpse of Nibbana, or the first true glimpse of the unconditioned, or the attainment of what they call stream entry. So you had your first glimpse of the unconditioned mind, when the conditioned mind kind of just opened momentarily, you had the glimpse of the truth. So that's called, and this destroys the 3 fetters of believing in a self, thinking it's something impermanent, permanent or eternal, or belongs to you, and then the attachment to rites and rituals, and doubts. So anyway, so those are the three defilements to be eliminated by the seeing. That means by attaining that moment of stream entry. But even before that, we can work on overcoming the defilement. So they're not actually destroyed until one has that moment of seeing. Now, and we mentioned last week how the two most important mental qualities used in overcoming the defilements are wise attention and unwise attention. And first of all, the Buddha mentioned about the unwise attention because that's what most people have. Most people that are not reached the first level of enlightenment or into the stream had that moment of seeing, then they're dominated mostly by unwise attention. That means focusing on the beautiful aspects of things. I'm going to mention that again briefly, shortly. So anyway, we have to understand what wise attention is, and then we have to cultivate the wise attention in order to overcome the unwise attention, because the unwise attention leads to the negative actions, that karmic actions like breaking the precepts and so on, that bring guilt, worry, remorse, and fear to us, our mind, and the suffering. But so hopefully that'll become clear as we go on. So now the second of these methods are the defilements to be overcome through restraining. So first you have the defilements overcome by seeing. But even in just general kind of mindfulness practice and let's say the vipassana meditation and so on, and following the 5 precepts. So even the 5 precepts are a form of restraining the mind, right? So people take the 5 precepts to abstain from those 5 main negative actions. You all know them. I'm not going to repeat them at the moment. And so it's a way of restraining. We take the precepts, every day or remind us all the time, so that when an inclination to want to kill, steal, lie, cheat, something else comes into the mind, we'll restrain ourselves, hopefully, because we'll remember, oh yes, I took these precepts and this is the way to overcome suffering. So just the fact that you consciously observe precepts is one way of restraining, but that's sort of just physically restraining. So the precepts alone are not enough to restrain the mind. So the restraint here that's being talked about is the practice of mindfulness, basically. So whenever we see, hear, taste, smell, touch, feel, or even think a thought, then that urge, we can notice the urge to maybe want to act upon it, in some unwholesome way. And we have to restrain ourselves, like let's say the urge to tell a lie. So, you're doing something and then this, I'll just fudge a little bit, or I'll, maybe not tell the whole truth or something else. And, if you haven't taken the precept, of course, they say, well, everyone else does it, no big deal, right? Okay, but then, some people may not get caught, but you might be the unlucky one that, gets caught in telling the lie or stealing something or, some other unwholesome action. So then the consequences come back to you. So the restraining, it requires the mindfulness. And there's also another word that's often used, heedfulness, appamada, or sati. That means the ability to observe and know what is entering your mind or your senses at any moment, but especially the urges, because it's the urge to want to do something that we have to restrain, because if we don't restrain the urge, then it will manifest or result in some action. So what we're restraining is the urge to do something or the thoughts about something that would increase that urge to do something. So we have to apply our mindfulness. And then it's called guarding the senses. So we have to guard the senses. I'm just going to read how the Buddha describes it. It says, and what monks should be abandoned by restraining. Here a person wisely abides with the eye faculty restrained. So he restrains the eye faculty. And that means that you're conscious of the eye, and you're also aware of how strong things attract our attention. So it's like having a guard at the sense faculties, the eye, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, to be aware what is entering them, like a doorway. That's why they're called the sense doors. They're the doorway through which the world flows through us. And most people don't have, their control over their sense faculties. And so they have this craving to look at everything, smell everything, want to taste, touch everything, because they don't have that restraint. And how do they restrain the eye faculty? That means they don't latch on to the marks of beauty. In other words, whenever you see or smell, taste something, there's either a pleasurable feeling in that object, a pleasurable odor that comes by your nose or that you see with the eye, even the bodily feelings, and the desire arises. So the desire to hold on to that or increase that pleasure. So that happens because we're paying attention to the marks of beauty. And so we try to restrain that. We don't pay attention to the marks of beauty, or there'll be some other ways of doing this that we'll cover next. But basically, it's the application of mindfulness and heedfulness to restrain the mind from going out. So you be aware, you're mindful of this desire arising, and you let go of it. You restrain the mind from going out. But that requires a very deep form of mindfulness to be able to restrain the sense faculties. But that's the importance of the practice of mindfulness, and that's why also it's important to be grounded in the body, because that's where all these sense organs are relaying their information. The vibrations from your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body are going through the nervous system before they reach the brain, where you have the reaction take place. And so if you have mindfulness, deeply aware of these subtle sensations coming through the senses, then that is the best way to then restrain the eye. We can observe the pleasurable feeling arise, and then we can be on guard. This pleasurable feeling is arising, and through the eye, ear, nose, and you can relax around it and not to reach out to it. So restraining the senses. But even though one tries to restrain the senses, you may not be successful right away. And or even at the same time. That's why there's also called the defilements to be abandoned by using. So this using, it kind of pertains to the monastics who and the four requisites. So the main things that we have desire and craving for in life are the physical food, clothing, then medicines, and lodgings. Anyway, these are called the four requisites, things that basically we need, and to use them wisely. So they're abandoned by using them. And for the monks, this refers to contemplating what each of these things is for. What is the purpose of food? The purpose of food is to keep the body alive and to hopefully eat the right kinds of food that won't cause it unnecessary pains and suffering, such as overeating. And we regard food as like a medicine. The food is medicine for a body. If we don't eat the food, the body will get weak. The cells won't have enough energy to, support, all the different systems of the body and so on. So we reflect that this food, we eat it mindfully, not out of craving for taste or to beautify the body necessarily, but basically using it like medicine. Like, a lot of medicine, people normally don't abuse it. Some people do, but usually, we don't abuse it because, it would make us more sick. So we reflect before we eat. We're using this food, just to keep the body alive. So a lot of people live to eat, but instead we eat to live. That should be the adage. So you reflect every time that you're going to eat food, that you eat moderately and not to develop the new pains of overeating. But so many people have craving and attachment to taste, and then they wind up causing unnecessary suffering for themselves. So that's using the requisites skillfully. And the same thing for clothing. This clothing should be used just to, when in the cold weather to keep the body warm, and then in the hot weather to keep the body cool, or to keep away the, touch of insects and flies or other inclement weathers and so on. So basically the clothing is used or to also hide or to, cover the body so you won't get arrested for nudity or something, by the police, or just, being modest, not wanting to, show off your body to other people by, wearing skimpy clothes, for example, and so on. So, but anyway, using whatever we cover the body with, we see it as that utilitarian type of purpose. And then the same with the lodgings. Whenever we're using a lodging, that we're using it for the same reason, to get out of inclement weather. And of course, in this day and age, we have to live in dwellings and so on. But not to, want to have the most luxurious palace or mansion and all these other things, living very modestly, and just having kind of a house or dwelling so that you can live in relative comfort and ease, and also not burden yourself with having a mortgage because you want a $1 million mansion to show off to other people, or whatever, and then you have to work a lot more with people you don't like, or do jobs you don't like, or resort to unscrupulous business dealings in order to, get enough money to buy, things that are, you don't really need, in that way. So all of that is a part of a reflection. Because again, all these teachings are about learning how to overcome the things that bring us problems, unnecessary problems and suffering, isn't it? So the defilements to be abandoned by using, that means the greed, with the greed for things, and the problems that come along with that. So these are reflections that you actually cultivate. And every time the monks use food or put on their robes, they're supposed to think like this, so that they don't develop greed and attachment or wanting better ones, and so on. And then there's the taints to be abandoned by enduring. And this means that a person endures discomforts. Just even the physical discomforts and so on. So like in meditation practice, actually having some aches and pains and itchy, irritating body sensations that you feel during meditation quite often, you learn how to endure them. People are always, moving around trying to find the most comfortable seat, or they're rubbing this and that because of these distractions. So the ability to have mindfulness and to endure, part of the restraining is also the mindfulness and enduring. Whatever discomfort or agitation it might be arising on the body or in the mind, we endure it by understanding that this is impermanent. Whatever sensations or visible objects or even sounds, you hear some bad, unpleasant words from somebody else. Somebody's talking to you with unpleasant words. You endure them with mindfulness. You have to endure them with mindfulness, and to know that they're impermanent, and realizing this person will stop talking sooner or later. I don't need to blurt back some reply and then aggravate the situation. So like that, we cultivate patience. So patience is one of the qualities that we use when we're enduring. Patience and wisdom. Wisdom that knows that about the impermanence and the no-self nature of things. So we endure the heat. People don't know how to endure things anymore. When it gets hot, they immediately want to run and turn on the fan or turn on the air conditioning. Or when it's too cold, they want to immediately go to turn up the heat, and people have become too soft, and so they become easily agitated or irritated when things are not sort of perfect according to their viewpoint. And this is mental unrest. This is what causes stress and anxiety and worry, and people can't get comfortable because they're anticipating that it's going to be, oh, that person never turns on their air conditioning. I don't want to go to their house. It's too hot in there. Or, they don't keep the heating up enough in the winter, or so many kind of things come into the mind. So those are all kind of, defilements, not being able to endure things. So the practice of enduring unpleasantness. And if you can't do that when you're sitting in meditation, like especially enduring pain, or if you're meditating and somebody is making noise, that it happens a lot in meditation centers, somebody starts coughing and, you can't endure that sound. But you have to apply, again, mindfulness and restraint and patience and wisdom. All these things have to be brought up in order to effectively be able to endure and let whatever disturbances or pain that's coming up, to let them run their course and know that they will change. Give it to 1 or 2 minutes, few minutes, little longer. All these things are going to change. Whenever we feel something unpleasant or something, the mind kind of assumes that they're going to be permanent. And so the rush to want to get rid of it instead of having patience and endure them. And it's also an occasion to practice loving kindness and other good qualities of the mind when you're, enduring those difficult situations. So that's the defilements to get overcome through enduring. And even enduring your own thoughts. Sometimes people in their meditation, they have these thoughts and worries that they wish they could get rid of. And, they try to force them out of their mind, but sometimes they keep coming back. But you endure them by not clinging to them and not feeding them with identification and so on. And again, you just understand that these are just mental bubbles, and they arise because of a cause. And if we don't feed them, if we have patience kind of just to ignore them or reflect on them, they'll, eventually pass away. Okay, now there's another, the next category or way to overcome the taints is by avoiding. Excuse me. Now, in this case, I had a irritation in the throat, but if I would have let it go on, I might have been coughing the next 5 or 10 minutes. So, okay, I took a drink of water, and hopefully that will, soothe the itch in the throat, and then we can continue. But the avoiding, this refers to if you know you have a weaknesses for certain things, or you're going to a place where you know there could be some danger or some possibility of some trouble, to avoid those places. But especially if you know you have a weakness for certain things. So if you know you have a weakness for food, then don't go down the streets where all the nice restaurants are and so on that may arouse your greed or desire for certain foods, or you're going in there when you maybe didn't really intend to. Or avoiding places like, if you have a penchant for gambling or so on, don't go to Las Vegas. Or big crowds where like protests and other demonstrations where there could be violence, which we know happens, to avoid them if you don't want to get caught up in, into unnecessary defilement. Like, what happened on January 6th, at the Capitol building, for example. So people came there and just innocently maybe, listening to some talks, but then because of this aroused speech, that it might arouse their some kind of false patriotic energy, and got them to go do some vandalizing or get caught up in the violence. So to avoid certain types of places where those defilements might arise. And now you yourself are the best judge of that, because through your own experience, certain places will cause a temptation to arise. So until you reach a very high level, then the Buddha recommends avoiding those kind of places that tend to stimulate our defilements. And then the next category is the defilements abandoned by removing. And this is probably one of the more important ones because it would cover all of the aforesaid mentioned methods too. That means they do not tolerate, a person does not tolerate the thought of sensual desire that comes into the mind. They remove it. They, push it out of the mind so that they don't, act upon it if it's something unskillful. And they don't tolerate the thoughts of ill will or the thoughts of the ego or other negative kind of thoughts. But in order to do that, to remove them, you have to apply the antidotes. And that's why actually the defilements gotten rid of by removing, then the Buddha had given another discourse called the Vitaka Santana Sutta, the removal of distracting thoughts, in which he talks about the 5 methods for removing the distracting thoughts until they would drop away out of the mind. But a lot of people, they like to entertain the thoughts. A thought of anger comes up and they, oh yeah, I get revenge on a certain person. And then you get a kind of a thrill, some kind of a thrill out of thinking negative thoughts, especially, of course, lustful thoughts, fantasies, but also ill will and other types of thoughts people get addicted to their thinking and their opinions. So it takes a lot of effort to remove these kind of distracting thoughts. But so the Buddha, I'm just briefly going to very quickly mention these things. The substituting a negative thought for the thought of an opposite reaction. For example, if a thought of ill will towards somebody comes to your mind, then substitute a thought to send that person metta instead of thoughts of ill will. So we think of sort of the opposite qualities. If it's a negative thought, we think of the positive opposites of those thoughts. It's called substitution. And if that doesn't work, then we examine the danger in entertaining such thoughts. Actually, I'm not going to go over them now because we've gone over that sutta also, and we've sent out the attachment of the removal of distracting thoughts, a book that hopefully most of you would have had that by now. But so I would say, get that book and read it too for learning these 5 ways of removing the distracting thoughts. But again, the previous sections on avoiding and enduring and using, these were to help keep these thoughts at bay in the first place. But even so, you try to avoid things or try to endure them, but yet still the thoughts arise, and that's why you have to apply all these other types of ways to help to abandon those unwholesome thoughts. But again, in all these cases, the development of mindfulness, clear comprehension, wise attention, and so on, they're all naturally included and exercised in practicing all these different ways. But it's interesting how the Buddha, he saw all these different, categories. By using them itself, you overcome the attachments to them by not being attached to them. or by enduring, and by avoiding the places, and then by removing. Now, the last category is the category of removing the taints by developing. Now, as we mentioned in the beginning, the defilements overcome by seeing. That means in the first method that was mentioned, or the first way, that referred to reaching the level of a stream enterer and destroying 3 of the 10 fetters. So this is based on the 4 stages and the 10 fetters of that keep the mind bound to the wheel of becoming. So the developing by the 7 factors of enlightenment. So what we develop is actually the 7 factors of enlightenment. So the person wisely develops the enlightenment factor of mindfulness, develops the investigation of Dhamma enlightenment factor. He develops the energy, the rapture, the tranquility, the concentration, and the equanimity factor of enlightenment. Now, this, of course, is only developed through intensifying one's meditation practice, and especially in the practice of the vipassana meditation and developing the 4 foundations of mindfulness to higher and higher levels, so that at some point you will reach the levels of the once returning, in which greed and hatred are weakened to a great extent, where somebody would really have to push your buttons to evoke any sensual desire or ill will or hatred in the mind. And then the further stages of the never returning in the Arahant stage, and we've already covered these things in previous talks. But basically it refers to the developing of the 7 factors of enlightenment. And of course that is developed, the 7 factors of enlightenment are developed in the course of practicing the 4 foundations of mindfulness, specifically the Dhammanupassana. So once you've cultivated the mindfulness of the body, that helps you endure pains and so on, and other irritations. It helps you develop mindfulness and concentration, and you go on to develop the mindfulness of feelings and then the mental states. And by that time, you would have developed your mindfulness and concentration to the degree that you develop those factors of enlightenment, so that ordinary mindfulness and concentration and energy get developed to become factors of enlightenment. And they become factors of enlightenment when you have reached the stage of a sotapanna and also have developed the concentration to the level of, if not the first jhana, at least to some extent, a good degree of concentration. But normally it's considered to reach the level of concentration of the first jhana. You would have then the enlightenment factor of concentration developed, and also the other factors. So those are the ways that the Buddha described for overcoming the defilements, and there's a lot more that can be said about them. But we're going to be putting up a book. There's a book written by a Buddhist monk called "Overcoming All of the Cankers," and Prashant is going to put that up as to where you can find to be able to see that book on overcoming the cankers. It's based on the commentaries to the sutta, And so it has a lot of very valuable and useful little ways of explaining these different things, especially about wise attention and unwise attention. And so I highly recommend people that are interested in learning more about this to try to get that book, and also reread the booklet of Venerable Nyanaponika on the removal of distracting thoughts. So probably somebody will maybe even put both of those books up eventually. But anyway, now I'd like to open it up to any questions that anybody might have about any of the things that we've just been talking about. Okay, so this question, what is the name of the booklet? Look there through these chants and try to copy these these links that the people are giving up to that. But the name of the book, one of them is Overcoming the Cankers by Venerable Buddharakkhita, and the other one is Removal of the Distracting Thoughts by Venerable Nyanaponika Mahathera. And people have put up some of these in the past. So re-listen to this talk if you forget the name so you can hear it again. So this next question, of all the methods you've discussed, is there any sense of one being better or more efficient than another? I read that the number one, seeing and knowing, are the most effective, and the last one, the developing, are the most effective at eradicating the 10th. Absolutely, of course. Number 1 and number 7 are the most effective, but in between there could be a long period of time, so that methods 2 through 6 are ways of, in the daily life, the very practical advice in the daily life to avoid unexpected problems, and other things like just learning to endure negative things. I mean, you can read about enduring pain, but actually, if you don't actually endure it physically, learn how to relax around it. But you endure it by also developing your factors of mindfulness and concentration too. But so those two are used for removing, but overcoming. I mentioned there's 2 phases of the defilements. First is they arise and you have to temporarily overcome it, like the hindrances. And then once you become effective in overcoming them, by being able to get rid of them the moment or shortly after they arise, then when you get better at that, then naturally your concentration and mindfulness and factors of enlightenment will improve, and then you will reach those levels of seeing and of the developing. So especially the ones of seeing are the most important, to develop that first initial glimpse to overcoming doubts, and to have that first glimpse of the truth, and then it becomes a lot easier to endure and to avoid and to remove the defilements that have arisen. So let me see what's that. Okay, so the last chat in there, somebody has put up a link to that book, Overcoming Its Cankers there. Thank you, Bhaskar. So friends, anybody have any last questions they might want to ask by raising the hand? If not, then, I just wanted to mention this Sunday, we're having a weekend retreat here at the Lion of Wisdom Center, in-house retreat. And on Sunday, we'll be broadcasting the Dhamma talk, at the 2 o'clock Dhamma talk on YouTube Live. Not Zoom, YouTube Live.
That's what you want.
Yeah, probably just YouTube Live. So, and that link I've sent out on mailing list. I hope most of you are familiar with that. Or go to our Lion of Wisdom YouTube channel. And it'll be at 2 o'clock on Sunday, Eastern Standard Time. So that will, for those who, especially those living in Europe who have trouble, listening to these broadcasts in the evening, then, that'll be happening on Sunday.
Bhante, can I quickly ask one question quickly?
Okay.
I just read, I just read the title of Bhante Buddharakita. I had met him at Bhavna long time ago. And I know he went back to Africa. He's the same person, right?
No, this is not Buddharakita, Uganda Buddharakita.
Oh.
This is Acharya Buddharakita, who's passed away already. He lived in Bangalore, actually. He was the head of the Mahabodhi Society in Bangalore back in the 60s, throughout 60s, 70s, until he died.
Oh, I see.
About
Okay.
10, 15 years ago, I think. Yeah. So it's a different Buddharakita. The names, monks have the same name sometimes, so you have to be aware of their prefix. Like, to distinguish me from other monks with the name Rahula, I have the prefix Yoga Vachara.
Yeah.
And Buddharakita from Uganda, he's called Uganda Buddharakita.
Oh, I
see.
see.
You know who he is.
Okay. Yeah. So Bhante, one more question. So I also noticed his title is Acharya, the one who wrote this book.
Well, because that's coming from probably the Sanskrit. He lived in India most of his life. So Acharya is a very common word.
Yes.
Meaning teacher, basically.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Bhante, is the upcoming retreat being live cast on YouTube or on Zoom?
Only the Sunday 2 o'clock Dhamma talk.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, the rest of it we're not broadcasting because it kind of causes distractions for the people that are here in the in-house program and so on. So we're going to broadcast just the Sunday 2 o'clock talk. But in Thanksgiving retreat, we are planning to broadcast more of the retreat, but that's the Thanksgiving retreat in November. But this weekend, just the 2 o'clock Dhamma talk. Okay, friends. So let's take a little break and then come back and do our stretches and meditation practice. Okay. put the clock so I can see it. Okay, friends. Just stand straight. Relax your arms and hands at the sides. Feel the feet pressing the floor. Just gently close the eyes. Feel your feet pressing the floor. Feel the arms and hands hanging at the sides. Feel the clothing touching the skin on different places. Feel the head balanced on top. Just try to mentally feel the outline of the standing body. Then begin some deep, slow breathing. Take 2 or 3 seconds to expand the abdomen, rib cage, and upper chest. Hold the air in the lungs for 2 or 3 seconds, then slowly breathe out, feeling the last bit of air go out of the lungs. Then the next in-breath. Combine these movements with that same type of deep, slow breathing. Just develop this basic mindfulness. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, standing here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, standing here and now. Breathing in, feeling the whole body. Breathing out, feeling the whole body. And you can open the eyes to watch as I lead you through these movements. So with the next in-breath, raise the arms over the head, interlock the fingers, turn the palms up, straighten the arms, stretch your head back, arch the lower back a little. On the out breath, turn the palms down, touch the top of the head. Again, in breath, palms up, straighten the arms, stretch the head back, bend back a little bit. Out breath, touch the head. Third time, hold that upward stretch longer. And bend back a little more. Feel the sensations in the spine. Release the fingers on the out breath, arms back to the sides. Relax. Just gently close the eyes. Just keep feeling either the feet pressing the floor or the hands at the sides. Just the present moment of the body. That wise attention to the present moment. The body standing, standing, just letting go of the thoughts. Just let the thoughts come and go in the back of the awareness, keeping the sensation body in the front of the awareness. Okay, then on the next in-breath, raise the arms over the head, push up on the toes and stretch upwards. Come up on the toes, stretch. Face the hands toward each other. Out breath, come back down. Use the breath to help lift up the body. In breath. Out. In. Out. Relax. Just feel the increased body sensations due to the deep breathing and the stretching. Cells of the body get activated. Just remember standing, standing. If any body irritations arise, like prickling, stinging, biting sensations, aches or pains, just patiently endure them. See how they're constantly changing. Okay, next we'll do side bending using both arms. On the in-breath, raise both arms up. And keep the fingers and arms straight, close to the head. On the out-breath, bend over the right side. And keep the arms and hands parallel to each other like railroad tracks. In-breath, lift up. Then the left side, out-breath. Feel the stretch in the sides. In-breath up. Again to the right, out-breath. In. Out. In. Once more to each side, out breath. The out breath, lower the arms, relax. And especially feel the increased sensations in your hands and fingers. Remember standing, standing. mindfulness of the body. Okay, now spread the legs and feet apart about 3 feet. And place the hands together at the chest. In breath, hands over the head. Out breath, hands to the chest, bend the knees, lower the body down. Keep the back upright, feet flat on the floor. Feel the stretch in the hips and knees. In breath all the way up. And out breath. In. Out. The out breath, relax. Just keep feeling the body. Each exercise will generate different sensations in different places. It's part of the wise attention, the mindfulness. Now holding the arms out to the sides, we'll do twisting from right to left. And breathe in. On the out breath, twist to the right. Keep your eyes focused on the hand going back. In breath, come back to the front. Let the feet turn with the body. And the other side, out breath. In breath, front. Let's continue that 2 more times to each side, coordinating with the breathing. Once more to each side. Relax. And the last exercise, forward and backward bending, keeping the legs spread apart. Let the hands touch the front of the legs. Breathe in. On the out breath, bend forward. Let the hands slide down to the knees the first time, but keep the head up, looking out straight ahead. Keep the legs straight, the arms straight. Flatten the spine. In breath, lift up. Move the hands under the buttocks for support. And gently bend backwards. Let the head go back. Breathe out. Keep the eyes open. Carefully breathe in, lift up. And again, out, breath forward. Let the hands come below the knees. Still keep the head up, legs straight. Feel the stretch in the back of the legs. In breath, lift up. Again, the back bend, out breath. In. Third time, let the hands come down as far as you can toward the feet and hold that position longer. Feel the stretch in the back of the legs. Just endure what, if there's any pain in the stretch, just endure that. Just allowing those muscles to stretch out. In breath, and lift up. And once more, the out breath, back bend. Be careful. In breath, lift up. And the out breath, just relax. Feel the whole body vibrating, pulsating with activated life force. Just allow all those activated body sensations, help relax the mind into the present moment. Feeling that aliveness of the body, the inner body. Okay, now bring the feet back together. Okay, then we'll mindfully come back to our seats for the sitting meditation. Place your hands, one on top of the other in the lap, or resting them on your legs. Once you place your hands in a position, try not to move them during the meditation period, to endure whatever little irritations that might come from the body sensation. Just gently close the eyes. Just move the attention down to where to feel the buttocks and the feet or the knees. Press the floor. Just feel that solid contact. The buttocks, the feet or legs against the floor. Just feel the different sensations. That lower body. Just try to feel your toes. Now feel the hands and the fingers touching together, where they touch the body. Try to feel the subtle pulsing of blood in the hands of fingers. Feel the outlines of your thumbs, other fingers. And just mentally remember sitting, the here and now of the body. And feel the weight of the arms hanging from the shoulders. Relax the shoulders. Feel the sensations of the clothing touching the skin of the shoulders, upper arms or chest. It's called the wise attention to the present moment. Now feel the head balanced on top of the neck. Keep the chin lifted up level with the floor. Start to feel that alert posture. And just rest the attention behind the eyes. Just feel the eyes resting in the sockets. And the eyelids stretched over the eyeballs. Just turning on the inner camera of awareness. Sort of watching the eyes sitting there in the head. And feel the other sensations on your face. Sensations of the skin stretched over the front of the skull. Or just any other sensation on the head. Just remember sitting, sitting. From that point behind the eyes, open up the lens of the awareness. Try to feel the outline of the body. Feel sensations from the head, the shoulders, arms, hands, buttocks, feet, clothing touching the skin. You don't have to look for anything, just relax the eyes. The feeling of the body should be there. Then begin some deep, slow breathing to exaggerate the expanding and contracting sensations. Also to oxygenate the blood. After breathing in, hold the air in the lungs 2 or 3 seconds to feel that pause, to feel the subtle sensations of the pause. And feel the relaxing contraction of the out breath, feeling the last bit of air go out of the lung. Just take a few more deep breaths, cultivating this basic present moment attention. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, feeling the whole body. Breathing out, feeling the whole body. Let's continue with the deep breathing a few more times. Whenever you get tired of the deep breathing, let it go. Just let the breathing return to its own uncontrolled rhythm. You continue to observe the shorter breath. And if you like, you can count the breaths from 1 to 10 on your own, as we've done before, to help develop a more continuous concentration on the breathing, just feeling the 4 phases of each breath cycle, the expanding in breath and the brief pause, the contracting out breath and the brief pause. If you're already well concentrated, then just continue with maintaining that constant connection in the breathing body. Just paying attention to the 4 phases of each breath. Expanding sensations of the in-breath, the brief pause, contracting sensations of the out-breath, and the brief pause. Being alert for thoughts sneaking up into the mind. Guard the faculty of the mind door. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. Sensations come and go, urges come and go, thoughts come and go. It's the flow of impermanence. It's maintaining that natural connection to the present moment of the breathing body. It's cultivating the wise attention to the flow of impermanence through the body and mind. Enduring any unpleasant or painful sensations that arise, or any unpleasant thoughts that arise. Enduring them with mindful attention, or removing. Developing the power of mindfulness. And notice how quickly different sensations and thoughts just arise and vanish. Arise and vanish very quickly. Developing the power of seeing. There's too many thoughts or the mind is dull. Take a few deep, slow breaths to reground the attention in the awake body. Keep turning up the power of the mental microscope to notice subtler, finer, detailed sensations arising and vanishing. Applying the appropriate ways for overcoming any unwholesome thoughts, reactions, urges. What are thoughts arose based on that sound vibration? Sabbe sankhara anicchati yada panyaya pasati atani bindati dukhi esamaggo visuddhya. Dukkha patta ca nidukkha bhaya patta ca nibbaya sokha patta ca nisokha hontu sabbe pipanino. All conditioned things, the five aggregates of this body, mind, and world are impermanent. When one sees this with the eye of wisdom, one becomes disenchanted with suffering. This is the path to purity, to freedom. It destroys the defilements through seeing. And may the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. In this way, may all beings live with mindfulness and wisdom. And thus spoke the Buddha. Okay, for those who like, you can join in chanting the word sadhu 3 times. During that chanting on a long out breath. So breathe in. Sadhu. And place the hands at the edge of the knees. Take one more deep breath as you stretch the head back and arch the lower spine. And lift the head up on an in-breath. On an out-breath, press the chin to the top of the chest to stretch the neck vertebrae. And lift the chin up level on an in-breath. And relax on the out-breath. Put a smile on your face. Okay, friends. So this brings our evening session to an end, and let's try to remember some of these ways of overcoming the defilements in your daily life, especially if you have the urge to go somewhere, look at something unsuitable, to avoid, practice the avoidance of unseemly objects or places, enduring them. If you encounter any unpleasant words during the week or pains, understanding that everything is impermanent, or practicing sense restraint, removing the thoughts. If they do lodge in the mind, you always have the secondary chance to apply the removal of distracting thoughts and remove those before you might have acted unskillfully on them. So this is the way that we actively, practice mindfulness in the daily life. Apart from your sitting meditations or other times of formal meditation where you might be developing the factors of enlightenment and concentration, those other methods are used in the midst of our daily life. Okay? So I haven't decided on which sutta I will look at next week, but I'll send that out in our newsletter at the beginning of next week. So have a pleasant Labor Day weekend. Again, use your mindfulness during that, whatever you or your family or others may be doing. Okay.
Thank you, Bhante.